Well, good afternoon, everybody. Mayor Gorton, Bill, Craig, thank you for coming to the announcement of several items that are pertaining to the Breeders' Cup Festival in 2020, including welcoming on board our 2020 Breeders' Cup Festival Committee, of which I think there are several here today. Thank you. It seems like it wasn't that long ago, but about 6 years ago, I remember Bill Thomason starting a press conference and talking about Breeders' Cup and the phrase, "Welcome home." And you fast forward 5 years later, or 6 years later, our theme is Welcome Back in 2020. I was fortunate enough to lead a group of volunteers in 2015 to pull off what a lot of naysayers said that it wasn't possible. They said that Lexington could not accommodate a truly world-class event. And all of us, including a lot of people in this room, should take great pride in the fact that we created one of the best Breeders' Cups ever, which I'm sure Craig will validate that, because you're coming back. The city embraced it. Keeneland executed its role like only Keeneland can do, and I think the naysayers became converts. So now it's time to welcome back the Breeders' Cup in a way only Lexington can do. And it all starts with the show itself, and to that point, I'd like for Craig Fravel, president of the Breeders' Cup, to tell us hopefully how easy we made the decision for the Breeders' Cup to come back to Keeneland.
Well, as the Breeders' Cup staff who's in attendance here can tell you, anytime you make a presentation of anything to the Breeders' Cup board, it goes through smoothly with very little conversation, very little debate, and it's always easy to get something accomplished in that score. But to be honest with you, the Breeders' Cup event in 2015, I'm sure we all kind of look back on it with a lot of different memories. I think our staff and management team took that event in particular as a huge challenge. I remember vividly, and Bob Ellison, who's now the Senior VP of Racing for Keeneland, was working with us at the time as our Chief Operating Officer, and we made a presentation to our Board of Directors that said that in order to make about $1 million for the Breeders' Cup itself at the end of the day, we had to sell about $17 million worth of tickets. We had to put up $5 million worth of temporary facilities, and we had to show people who were going to come visit Lexington that we had enough hotel rooms, restaurants, and other amenities for things to come off well. Now, having said that, the year before, when we were at Santa Anita, we had sold about $8.5 million worth of tickets. So it was either a brave or foolish thing to do to make projections to your board of directors that you could double your ticket revenues in a city about, maybe 1/10 or 1/5 the size of the city of Los Angeles. So it really was looking back on it, I kind of wonder if we had completely lost our minds. But the fact of the matter is, the Breeders' Cup in 2015 set a new standard for the event altogether. It had moved around in the past, typically to some venues where there was a lot of state and municipal money going into the coffers, so that it made those events worthwhile for the Breeders' Cup from a financial standpoint. But we had to do it here just on the basis of basic business principles and the support, not from a financial standpoint, but from a participation and enthusiasm standpoint from the city of Lexington and the surrounding counties. And when I say it set new standards, we in fact did hit that $17 million in ticket sales number. We actually exceeded it. We had at least $5 million worth of temporary facilities that, thanks to Keeneland's enthusiastic embrace of the effort, had been tested out in the prior meets of, I think, the fall before, as well as the spring meet of 2015. So we had a pretty good idea of what worked and what didn't work. Certainly the Breeders' Cup's nominators, stallion farms, breeding farms here within the Lexington area, were enthusiastic and jumped in to help out in any way they could to make the event something special. So it really it was incredibly successful from a racing standpoint. I think we'll all remember a horse named American Pharaoh winning the Triple Crown, and then the, quote, Grand Slam victory in the Breeders' Cup Classic, which always makes management a hero when you have a Triple Crown winner win the Breeders' Cup Classic. But that was only a part of the story. The real story, from my standpoint, was the support we got from this community, the way people embraced it, the way you walked around town and heard the enthusiasm, the encouragement, and the just general joy of the city of Lexington in terms of having the event here. And I think it was an eye-opener for a lot of people here. And Kip Cornett, disproving the theory that you get what you pay for, Kip volunteered to be the chair of the festival committee, and we were able to get him to volunteer again for exactly the same amount of pay he got the first time around. Notwithstanding that, the festival itself, despite some bad weather early in the week, was a tremendous success. There was something, it was a gift back to the community from the horse world. It was supported by Kentucky One Health at the time, but also by breeders and owners like Greg Goodman at Mount Brilliant Farm, who contributed significantly to the overall event. And Kip's organization raised $750,000 in sponsorship money just for festival events themselves. And that included music and parades, and Here Come the Mummies, I think, was a big part of the event. And overall, it just was something of a inclusion of the city of Lexington in the festivities surrounding the Breeders' Cup, and that again set a new standard that we've tried to replicate. Believe it or not, it's much easier to do that here in Lexington because of this community support than Los Angeles, for example, where there's just so much to get your arms around. It's a much harder task, but we did much the same thing when we held the Breeders' Cup in Del Mar in 2017. So our goal, I think, looking forward to 2020, is to take everything we learned, and that goes with like most amazing traffic control ever implemented for Breeders' Cup in history. I mean, probably other than American Pharoah, the highlight was how quickly people got in and out of Keeneland. We want to replicate the weather for Friday and Saturday, more for Saturday than for Friday, but we want to get rid of that hurricane that kind of bounced through early in the week and made us a little damp early on. But we can't wait to get started. We've actually already gotten started as you're here today. And our team has been working with Keeneland and developing plans, building on what we did in 2015, and we look forward to an incredibly exciting event again in 2020. So thanks to you volunteers who have agreed to help with the festival committee. Thanks to all of you, whether civic leaders and Mayor Gordon, who I've just met for the first time today. We can't wait to work with you and your team and show everyone once again how great the Breeders' Cup can be at a place like Keeneland.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah. I mentioned earlier that there were a few skeptics about the city of Lexington being able to pull off what we did, but I don't think anybody doubted Keeneland in 2015, because when the Keeneland team sets their mind to making something happen, it does, and it happens in a way that's uniquely Keeneland. Bill Thomason, president of Keeneland, can you tell us how you're going to top 2015?
No pressure. No pressure. What Craig just described was when we used the theme back in 2015, it was Welcome Home. That's where it starts, right? When family comes home, you don't let each other fail. At Keeneland, that's what we start with among our team. We will refuse to let each other fail. This team had confidence not only in getting the Breeders' Cup to come to Keeneland, and we had a lot of people who stepped out at that time. You know, Craig did it, the Breeders' Cup staff did it, the Breeders' Cup board did it to entrust this community. And the reason is our team members were confident, and because of that, we're not going to let our community fail. We're proud of this community. We're proud of Keeneland's stature in the community and what we do, and we're proud of our mission. We had confidence in what we were going to do, but we had confidence in what the community was going to do. And that's what was so important to it. They were coming home to a community that understood the horse business and understood this race and understood the event and what it meant around the country. And Kip made one comment. He's been humble to say it. Craig can't say it because his board, and he's got to go somewhere else after he comes here with another Breeders' Cup. It's the best Breeders' Cup ever. I've heard it all over the world. It's what every Breeders' Cup's measured by. It's what every community's measured by, the excitement of our fans, the excitement of the whole community, and how everybody's so engaged together to make it happen. And I've had people talking to me ever since it was here, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? So what are we going to do differently? I can promise you we're going to get the cars in and out again because we know how much that means to everything else. But y'all, what we were talking about early in the week, there's so many things our fans didn't get to experience. We had magic days of racing on Friday and Saturday, but we had challenging weather at the first part of it. So, Mayor, they didn't get to experience everything in our community that they're getting ready to see next year. So there's so much more to come, and do we have something different that we're going to do? You bet. You bet. So just wait. And from all of us, we don't know what it's going to be doing, Krista, but it's going to be great, and you're going to love it. But it will be exciting. And Craig, from all of us, thank you for the confidence that you've shown in Keeneland, you've shown in the Community Cup. Thank you for everything that you've done to make it successful and to make all the events there. And Mayor, we get to do this together. And there's nobody more excited than me to be able to do this with you and to showcase our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. The third piece of the puzzle was the city. We obviously, like Bill said, a lot of people got really excited here, but the city stepped up in a big, big way. And Mayor Gorton, there's no question that we could not have done the Breeders' Cup in 2015 without cooperation and support of the city. And I can tell you, we will need it again in 2020. Mayor Linda Gorton.
Thank you. And you'll get it.
Thank you.
First, I just have to say the comments by Craig and Bill and Kip, you heard words like teamwork, community, excitement, wonderful, best. That is just so terrific, and I know that there are many of our local leaders in the community, leaders like PG and Bob back there, and many of you represent different parts of our community. Thank you so much for being here. It's really exciting to have all of you here. I also want to welcome several council members. We've been following each other around for press conferences today, and so in case you don't know, we have a new salt barn. So Councilmember Richard Maloney, Councilmember James Brown is here, Councilmember Josh McKern, Councilmember Jennifer Reynolds, Councilmember Bill Farmer, and are there any other council members here? Okay, thank you all for being here. Welcome back, Breeders' Cup. Welcome back, Breeders' Cup Festival. Our city couldn't be more excited, and we are so looking forward to having you back here in the horse capital of the world. The Breeders' Cup is always an opportunity for us to demonstrate just how we earned our title, Horse Capital of the World. We earned it by being home to the best citizens, the best track, and the best horses. With Keeneland and the Breeders' Cup as our partners, we'll have another winner with the Breeders' Cup Festival in 2020. Kip, we all look forward to learning about the plans for the festival, and we also look forward to having lots of volunteers and making the 2020 Breeders' Cup even more of an all-around success than 2015, if that's possible. We're going to see that it happens. So Lexington, the international spotlight is coming our way. We're so excited about it, and we're going to get ready to shine. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all so much, Bill and Craig and Kip. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no question it's going to take a big, big effort for our city to outdo what we did in 2015. But I do think with the help of the committee that we've assembled, the people that have stood up and said that they'll take part in this, plus our sponsors and our volunteers that we'll be recruiting in the weeks to come, There's no question we'll put on another memorable week for our guests that come here for the racing, and also the people of Lexington who live here. If you're a festival committee member and you know it, please stand up. Please stand up. Yeah, I think you do. Thank you all very much for coming. We got our work cut out for us, but I'm sure we can pull it off. But it starts here today. Somebody had asked me earlier, do we have the full week to roll out? We're not even sure exactly what day we're starting on, but it will be somewhere between 6 and 7 days. But I think that can give you enough details to let you know the flavor of what's going to come in 2020. It starts here. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of patience. There's a lot of people that we're going, whether it's the city or businesses or volunteers, to pull all this together. And we learned a lot in 2015. And we think we can make it even better. We can learn from our mistakes. We're going to focus in 3 areas: entertainment, imagine that, education, and experiential opportunities during the week of the World Championships. We promise it will be a mix of activities that will showcase our city, our state, and how we welcome and celebrate events that are hosted in the horse capital of the world. There will be 2 major changes for 2020. One is that we are not going to mess with Mother Nature. We actually will have more music and more entertainment offerings, but since if you think about 2015, and somebody posted a picture today that showed the old Pepper Distillery in 15 and what it looks like today in the Distillery District, there were so many things that we didn't have online in 15 that we do have in 2020, so we want to take advantage of those. But we will still have national and local artists throughout the city, venues, but we're not going to look at messing with Mother Nature anymore. We had 3 rainouts. There's other ways that we can do it. And I think the big change that I think people will not only notice in the entertainment space, but in the education space, is one of the things I'm going to charge my festival committee members with is we want to put the world into the World Championships. And by that, I mean we really and truly want to celebrate this as a true international event, much like the World Cup and the Olympics. Our goal is to showcase racing from around the globe and their connection to the bluegrass region we call home. We will actually be creating an international village in downtown. If you think about when you've watched the Olympics or some of these big international events and how they incorporate and salute and showcase the culture from around the world, we're going to be doing that in downtown Lexington. More to come on that. But there will be programming and signage that will both educate and entertain our guests and locals. Lastly, before we close this out, we had some exciting news on Friday of last week. CHI St. Joseph Health has agreed to return as our presenting sponsor for the festival. So that's great news. So let's hear it for CHI St. Joseph. I think Craig mentioned a number. We're going to get over that number that we raised in 2015. And at the end of the day, the quality of the event cannot be achieved without the sponsors stepping up to the plate. And we had a lot of those. And we're glad to see our first one come on board. But we need many more, and I see a lot of people out here whose doors I will be knocking on in the coming weeks to help do that. And as the old saying goes, the more dough, the better the show. There's so much more to come, so please stay tuned as we continue to build an amazing week for Breeders' Cup 2020 at Keeneland. Thank you for coming. Breeders' Cup 2020 will be here before you know it, and I assure you that our guests will leave as happy in 2020 as they were in 2015. Thank you all very much.